This peaceful, poetic image of the Earth seen from space is misleading. Powerful telluric forces are constantly perturbing the planet. Magnificent volcanoes and tumultuous oceans, clashing over millions of years, have created dazzling archipelagos. Borne by winds and currents, we're setting sail for one of these breathtakingly beautiful islands. A tall ship, the Star Clipper, sets sail for Indonesia with an offshore wind in its sails. The journey will take her across the mythical line of the equator to her final destination, which sits in the turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, Indonesia, the largest archipelago in the world. Sailing from one island to the next, we will drop anchor alongside magnificent shores and climb majestic and sacred volcanoes. In this deeply spiritual landscape, the volcanoes are like gods. They are feared as much as they are worshipped. From Bali to Lombok via Java, we will discover a country with many faces, Indonesia, the archipelago of volcanoes. At 6 a.m., all sails set, the Star Clipper glides across the ocean. As she approaches Bali, the captain gives the order to lower the mainsail. A few moments later, the tall ship, escorted by dozens of small fishing boats, carefully navigates the channel leading to the port of Benoa.
1.5.
The first passengers haven't started to arrive yet. The cruise is scheduled to depart at the end of the day. We take advantage of the next few hours to get to know the volcanoes of Bali. Suteha, our driver, and Dua, a volcanologist, drive us to the northeast of the island. With its lush green valleys lined with rice paddies, Bali is a Garden of Eden and a calm oasis of spirituality. The Balinese, who are Hindu, have a very close relationship with nature, with the sea as an island nation, but especially with the volcanoes, the home of the gods. After a 2-hour drive, we finally reach Mount Batur, one of the most active volcanoes in Indonesia.
Currently in Indonesia, we have 127 active volcanoes. Among them, 77 are classified as Type A. They are the most dangerous, like Mount Batur, because it has been active continually since the 1600s.
The gigantic eruption of this stratovolcano in 1917 remains deeply etched in everyone's memory. It resulted in nearly 1,000 victims and completely destroyed the inhabited village within the caldera, a large cauldron-like hollow created by the collapse of a gigantic volcano several million years ago. With nearly 130 active volcanoes, Indonesia is undoubtedly the most volcanic country in the world. It is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is marked by major fractures in the Earth's crust. In this part of the world, tectonic plates are shifting at the astonishing rate of up to 5 centimeters per year. When these tectonic plates collide, they release a force of energy from the depths of the Earth and cause earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. We are now driving along the Batur caldera.
Di mana kita lihat
What you can see on either side of the road are slabs of lava rock from the Mount Batur volcano. They date from the eruption of 1871. As this is basaltic lava, it has been almost impossible for any kind of vegetation to take root and grow back.
Since 1804, Mount Batur has erupted 26 times. Yet local inhabitants are reluctant to leave the land. After each disaster, they return to the caldera to rebuild their houses and temples.
The Balinese consider volcanoes to be holy places, like all places at high altitude. Even though volcanoes often erupt, people consider them to be both sacred and beneficial because volcanic ash makes the land very fertile.
In Indonesia, volcanoes are highly respected. The power of people's beliefs and the weight of tradition are stronger than the fear of eruptions.
For us Balinese, the force of nature is very important in our philosophy, so much so that we very often pray to honor the natural world that surrounds us.
Back to the port of Benoa. By now, all the passengers have boarded the Star Clipper. The captain and his officers are making their final checks. Only Irina, the cruise director, remains on the dock.
I'm checking now that my also crew members, which are the team they're embarking them, that they're coming on board, that nobody's missing from my team. That's actually my moment. I like always to be in front of the ship when it's the sunset. We are going to new horizons and new adventures. It's amazing, amazing.
We're just minutes away from setting sail.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good Abend.
All the passengers have assembled on deck for the mandatory safety briefing.
In case of emergency, we will meet here. You will go for your life jacket only in the case that you...
After a few final safety points, it is at last time to depart.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's go, spring line.
Sailing at dusk into the darkness of the night, the captain sets course for Probolinggo on the north coast of Java. With one eye on the radar navigation, the captain is on watch as the ship leaves the port. The Benoa Channel is the only way to reach the open sea, and his ship is not alone. She is surrounded by small, poorly lit fishing vessels heading out to sea to fish at night. There is a real risk of collision. Once safely out of the channel, they hoist the sails.
It was curious for me to see how they managed it, especially when we went out of the narrow in the sea there to find the right way, not to go too far left, too far right. And then after passing that section, they were really setting the sails. Impressive.
I saw the sails and I thought, wow, that's crazy. I have never been on a ship, on this ship, and it's crazy for me.
Very early in the morning, we approach Probolinggo. This is a commercial port where only freighters and small local boats can dock. The captain must therefore drop anchor a few hundred meters from the shore.
It's shallow waters here, 6-7 meters under the keel, and traffic. So we stay in the safe position. It's good. Everything's okay.
Aboard a tender, we enter the small inlet where colorful fishing boats have taken refuge. This is where Aris, our guide and volcanologist, is waiting for us. At the end of this road, which heads up into the mountains of Java, are two of the most beautiful and active volcanoes in Indonesia, Mount Bromo and Mount Semeru. People travel from all over the globe to see these sacred giants. Local guides are usually very talkative, yet Aris remains silent. Not because he is shy, but because he knows, as he found out when he came to settle here, that words are meaningless when contemplating the beauty and power of the Tengger Massif.
Come on, let's go and see Mount Bromo.
We are left speechless, stunned, amazed. 4 volcanoes, including the famous Mount Bromo, stand in the hollow of a huge caldera which measures more than 16 kilometers wide.
Thousands of years ago, there was a huge volcano here, really huge. It erupted violently and then collapsed in on itself. And what you have here in front of you is the result, the Bromo caldera.
The geometrical simplicity of these volcanoes, the harmony of shapes. How can one imagine that such perfection is the result of a huge and powerful volcanic eruption? The slopes of Mount Batok, which is now inactive, are punctuated by gullies dug out by thousands of years of erosion. Like Mount Bromo, from which small plumes of smoke escape as a sign that it's still active, these volcanoes are works of art, gigantic sculptures carved by nature.
There you see in the background Mount Semeru, the highest mountain peak in Java, and one of the most active volcanoes in Indonesia. It's capable of erupting every half an hour. Semeru is a very dangerous volcano.
On the slopes of the old volcano that surround the caldera, nature flourishes in this peaceful, verdant landscape known as the Tengger Massif. In the 16th century, in order to escape the Islamization of Java, the Tenggerese people, who were Hindus, took refuge in these mountains. Since then, this extraordinary people have managed to preserve their way of life and their religion. The Tenggerese honor Shiva, but they also surround him with a number of animist beliefs, like the cult of the Bromo volcano. Following a well-established Tenggerese ritual, Pakaman and his family get to work on their small plot of land. But today, they are doing something a little different.
Every year, at the end of the season, we take some of the vegetables from our land to offer up to Mount Bromo, to thank him for a good harvest.
For the offering, the family chooses some of their best vegetables, including potatoes, cabbages, onions, as well as some flowers.
All right, I'm going.
During the annual Kasada ritual, the Tenggerese people climb Mount Bromo to make offerings. The origin of this tradition dates back to the 16th century. Everyone knows the story, but it is the custom that only shamans are allowed to tell it.
Princess Roro Atang and Yoko Senger were children of the Brahmin caste. They became husband and wife, but could not have children. So they went to meditate, and as a last resort, they made a promise to the god Brahma. If Brahma helped them to have 25 children, they would throw their youngest child into the crater of Mount Bromo as a human sacrifice.
The couple's wish was granted. They had 25 children, but they forgot their promise, so Brahma enacted his fury on the whole country. Mount Bromo spewed out a continuous rain of volcanic ash. Legend has it that before jumping into the crater to appease the gods, the young prince asked the Tenggirese people to continue to make offerings to the volcano to avoid further calamities. To reach Mount Bromo, the two men will have to ride 10 kilometers on horseback across the immense caldera. The vegetation soon gives way to a landscape of volcanic ash. Over time and after numerous eruptions, the hollow has been transformed into a wind-swept ocean of black volcanic sand. It doesn't take long for them to spot the Porolor Poten temple. Stranded on the sand plain of the caldera, this Hindu temple was built at the foot of Mount Bromo. Here, pilgrims can rest as well as respect tradition by praying before they set out to climb the sacred volcano. For Pakaman and his friend, the time has come to make the final leg of the journey. They must now climb the 253 steps that lead to the summit of the crater at 2,329 meters above sea level.
It's physically very tough, but I'm used to it. You have to draw on all of your strength to reach the Bromo crater.
The two men look down into the depths of the crater from where the pungent smell of sulfur escapes. Giant Mount Bromo, scarred by centuries of eruptions, covered with thousands of small fragments of lava, otherwise known as lapilli. It is here in this crater that, according to legend, the god Brahma created the world and gave his name to the volcano. Yet it is at the feet of Ganesh, god of wisdom and virtue, and bearer of good luck, that Pakaman and his friend lay down their offerings. By performing this ritual, they pledge allegiance to the god Bromo and seek his protection. Back on board the Star Clipper, our journey continues. This time, the captain sets a northerly course for the island of Madura.
All sails now.
The captain drops anchor just a short distance from a heavenly beach. In Madura, unlike nearby Java, there are no volcanoes on the horizon. This is a geological curiosity seen as a blessing by Indina, our guide.
I'm so grateful to live in Maduras. because Madura is far from volcanoes. During a long time ago, we never got the natural disaster. Just one, the biggest problem in Madura is that's the flood during rainy season. We will meet a local fisherman. Most all of people work as a fisherman.
In Legung, like in all the villages on the west coast of Madura, life is organized around fishing. Once the fish have been unloaded onto the shore, it's the women's turn to take over the work and sell it at the market. These young fishermen, who are heading out to sea, agree to take us with them on their perahu, a traditional fishing vessel.
There is a local wisdom of Madura's people. They make the wind and the wave as their friends because they almost spend their daily life in the sea.
The sea holds no secrets for these fishermen. They know and respect its wrath. They know how to predict rough seas and avoid it. But what about volcanoes?
The eruptions in Java frighten me. Sometimes the ash carried here on the wind causes respiratory diseases, and we can also lose our houses. In Madura, we can't go out to sea when the hot ash falls here. We are afraid that one day we may die under the burning clouds of the volcano.
The biggest afraid of us is tsunami. I know one of the most dangerous places there's in Indonesia, especially in Java, which is really close for Madura. But what can we do? There's not a lot of things we can do, almost pray to our God. That's it.
Should people like Indina be fatalistic and accept the wrath of the sea and the volcanoes? Or should they, along with the scientists who continue to research volcanoes, try and understand them in order to better protect themselves? This conundrum will most likely stay in the forefront of our minds throughout this journey. We wanted to head back to Java. The sun comes up over the caldera of the Tengah Massif. For a brief moment, it feels like we've returned to the beginning of time. We'll soon get a glimpse of it by climbing Mount Semeru, the highest peak in Java. As we set out to cross the Bromo caldera to reach the trail that will take us up Mount Semeru, we get caught up in a sandstorm. According to Aris, our volcanologist guide, this is a common phenomenon.
This dusty landscape is identical to the one we experience when Mount Bromo erupts and projects volcanic ash. This dust we see around us is simply the ash released during successive eruptions of Mount Bromo.
We take the high ridge overlooking the caldera to escape the dust storm. At the end of the track that crosses the Tengah Massif, we reach the last inhabited village in the region, Ranupani, which lies at the foot of the majestic Mount Semeru. We arrive in the middle of a kuda lumping performance, which means jumping a horse in Javanese. This is a traditional Javanese dance where dancers, only men, ride horses made of woven bamboo decorated with colorful paints and cloth. The rhythm of the drums and the gamelan percussion gradually accelerates. The shaman, who orchestrates the ceremony, uses a whip to open the doors of an invisible world and invites the spirits to take possession of the dancers. Spurred on by the music and a cocktail of medicinal plants, the horsemen eventually go into a trance. The origin of kuda lumping is unknown, Some see it as a symbol of the struggle of the Javanese people against the Dutch colonizers, whereas others see it as an animistic ritual that enables the Tengerese people to honor their ancestors whose spirits inhabit the volcanoes. While we are witnessing this strange ritualistic dance, Aris is checking the equipment to enable us to climb Mount Semeru.
Today we're going to head out on our trek to Mount Semeru. It's not too difficult today, compared to what we'll have to face tomorrow. The ascent to the top of Mount Semeru is the most difficult ascent in the whole of Java.
2 Sherpas will accompany us. They will carry all the equipment, including tents, ice axes, sleeping bags, and food. There is no room for lack of planning when it comes to climbing Mount Semeru. Despite their heavy loads, the Sherpas walk at a brisk pace. We're struggling a bit, but there's no question of lagging behind. We have 16 kilometers to go through jungle vegetation and across volcanic plains before we reach the base camp at Mount Semeru. We walk through beautiful scenery, such as Lake Ranu Kumbolo, which sits in the crater of an extinct volcano. This place is sacred to the Tengerese people. It is therefore forbidden to swim here. After 7 hours of walking, we finally arrive at base camp. Mount Semeru stands tall in front of us. Beautiful, powerful, impassive. The volcano defies us. But we mustn't falter now. We have a few hours to rest and regain our strength before we begin the ascent of this sacred giant, Semeru, home of the Hindu gods. Since the beginning of the 19th century, Semeru has erupted 55 times. After a relative period of calm, it has been in a state of near constant eruption since 1967 to the present day. It still regularly erupts to this day, making it one of the most active and dangerous volcanoes in Indonesia.
Right now, it's difficult to predict exactly when Semeru will next erupt. It can erupt every 2 or 3 hours, or sometimes at a slower or faster rate.
But for now, nothing happens. Mount Semeru remains strangely calm.
The volcano is the one to decide when it wants to erupt.
A clear trail zigzags down the side of the volcano. This is the one and only route up to the summit. In the footsteps of our guide Aris, we will set out on this trail tomorrow night.
There's no other option than to take this trail. It's very dangerous to stray from this path, as there can be landslides.
Aris knows what he's talking about. In the past, hikers have lost their lives here. As night falls, the temperature suddenly drops below freezing. As we gather around the campfire, we only have one question on our lips. Will the volcano wake up? Will we witness one of its brutal eruptions of which only Mount Semeru holds the secret? At 1 a.m., guided by the beam of our headlamps, we begin our ascent. The slope is steep, it's unforgiving. Our footsteps sink deep into the thick layer of ash. We make slow progress, making our way cautiously between blocks of lava. After 4 hours of physical effort, we finally reach the summit in the first light of dawn. At 3,673 meters, we are on the roof of Java.
You know, look.
Hey, look!
Volcano eruption. See,
The volcano is erupting.
Oh, super. Fantastic. Erupsi seperti ini.
It's a Strombolian eruption.
Erupsi Strombolian. Material yang disemburkan.
The volcano spews out volcanic rock, lava, and ash.
Lava pijar dan debu juga ini.
You see, rocks like these are lava bombs.
Ini lava bomb dan juga material.
And that is volcanic ash. Strombolian eruptions affect the volume of magma that rises up towards the Earth's surface. When the magma reaches the surface, it encounters a lava crust that blocks its progress. The pressure builds, and when it gets too great, an eruption occurs and blasts through the lava crust.
We will remember that night for a long time to come. We would have stayed longer, but the time has come to return among men. Just as we start our descent, the wind scatters the last ashes of Mount Semeru. But is it the wind or the breath of the gods? 3,600 meters below, the Star Clipper continues its journey across the Java Sea.
On this ship, we have 17 sails, and area of the sails 3,284 meters. We can reach speed 17.1.
Sitting out on the deck in the shade of the main sails, the passengers listen to Captain Vladislav talk about navigation and his passion for tall ships.
And we have 4 masts. This is 4 main, mizzen, jigger mast, 4 masts.
Measuring 115 meters long, this ship is a replica of the clippers of the 19th century, which traveled the oceans, their holds loaded with tea from China, wool from Australia, and spices from Indonesia. Some of the passengers cannot resist the challenge of climbing to the top of the tall mast, which is 63 meters above the deck. As they make their ascent, they appreciate the effort sailors in the past must have made to climb the rigging to furl or unfurl the sails in the middle of a storm.
Perfect view. I love it all. I love it going up, I love it going down, and I feel like a sailor, and I feel free. It's perfect.
We are now approaching the north coast of Bali and Lovina, our next port of call. As soon as we disembark, we head to the east of the island. It is here, in this region shaped by volcanic activity, that Mount Agung stands at 3,140 meters. This stratovolcano isn't just the most sacred volcano in Bali, it is also the most dangerous. In 2017, after lying dormant for over 50 years, Mount Agung erupted. 4 months of fiery clouds and plumes of ash, sometimes rising to over 4,000 meters high. The 140,000 inhabitants of the region had no choice but to abandon their land and their homes. Mount Agung is dormant once more, but remains under close watch. Once a month, Dua, the volcanologist who is also our guide, comes to check that the equipment in charge of measuring the volcano's pulse is functioning properly.
We use this GPS station located on the slopes of Mount Agung to measure seismic activity as well as the volume of the volcano. When the magma flow is active, there is an increase in the volume of the volcano, while the volcano decreases in volume when the activity in the magma chamber ceases.
This data, which is vital to help predict the next possible eruption of Mount Agung, is transmitted in real time to the observatory located about 10 kilometers away.
So, is the seismic activity the same as yesterday?
Using a seismograph, GPS data, and satellite imaging, Dua's team monitors Mount Agung 24 hours a day. With an average of 4 volcanic earthquakes per day, vigilance is all important. The sleeping giant is always restless. Hour by hour, Dua scans the crater for gas emissions.
The fumaroles are extremely fine when you look at them, which means that the volcano is calm. But a month ago, we detected an increase in the volume of the volcano. It corresponded to what I was seeing on the ground, an eruption column 300 meters high.
Mount Agung's angry outbursts have often been fatal. In the villages situated at the foot of the volcano, Dua is held in high esteem. He is the man capable of predicting disasters and therefore of protecting the inhabitants.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
The deadly eruption of 1963 still haunts the village elders.
When I first took up my post here, I was invited to the home of this gentleman, Nengaguna. He experienced firsthand the eruption of 1963.
The first eruption took place in February 1963. 1 month later, in March, lava came flowing down the slopes of the volcano. There were clouds of incandescent ash, mudslides and lahars, rivers of mud that flowed into the village. I was so scared. I'd never experienced anything like that before.
The 1963 eruption lasted over 10 months. It destroyed many villages, killing 1,500 people and forcing thousands of others to flee their homes. This unprecedented volcanic eruption is considered by scientists to be one of the 10 biggest volcanic disasters of the 20th century.
You know, we must continue to respect the Agung. It's sacred to us Hindus. For me, volcanic eruptions are the work of the gods. That's why every month I go to the temple to pray.
Pura Besaki is the largest and holiest temple in Bali. During the eruption of 1963, it was only just spared by lava flows, which is regarded as a miracle by many Balinese people. Built in the 8th century on the slopes of the volcano, Besaki is regarded by Balinese Hindus as the axis of the world. Thousands of pilgrims come here all year round to make their offerings. Even Dua, the volcanologist, respects this tradition every time he is here.
We pray and make offerings to God so that He may bless us and grant us prosperity. The grains of rice on my forehead represent nature's harvest, and that what nature gives us is extremely precious. This temple is sacred because it's built on the volcano. For us Balinese, the closer we get to the summit, whether on Mount Batur or Mount Agung, the closer we are to the gods.
Viewed from sea level, Mount Agung is even more impressive. The ship leaves Bali and we continue our journey around the Lesa Sunda Islands. The captain charts his course the old-fashioned way, using a compass, as he was trained to do at the Odessa Maritime Academy. Made up of over 13,000 islands, the Indonesian archipelago is an aquatic maze. The captain therefore remains vigilant in order to safely reach Sudak, a small island off the coast of Lombok. Respectful of the environment, he decides to drop anchor far from the shore and the coral reefs. Our arrival doesn't seem to bother the few inhabitants of this miniature paradise. Sudak is a stopover, a chance for the passengers to relax. It's an underwater paradise before returning to the summits of the volcanoes. This beautiful image is deceptive. In 2018, the north of Lombok experienced a violent earthquake. Mount Rinjani, an active volcano, was also hit. Tons of rock came crashing down the slopes, causing panic among climbers. And it also blocked all the routes that led down from the summit. But it was at the foot of the volcano that the earthquake caused the most damage, killing many people and leaving thousands homeless. Only traditional villages built from bamboo withstood the shock. Reconstruction, in accordance with anti-seismic building standards, is underway, but it will take a long time. Since this catastrophe, Mount Rinjani no longer receives visitors, and trekking up the volcano is forbidden. Once again, the Star Clipper takes to the seas. This final leg of our journey will take us to Ketapang, at the extreme east of Java. We leave the ship at dawn just in time to watch the sun rise over the caldera Ijen. Bathed in the morning mist, coffee plantations stretch out as far as the eye can see. In the distance looms the mysterious Kawah Ijen volcano. In the company of Aris, our Javanese guide, we tackle the ascent of this 2,400-meter-high volcano. Arriving at the summit, we emerge from the mist to discover the incredible Kawah Ijen crater, which means green crater in Javanese. Surrounded by basalt rock dating back thousands of years, this lake is the world's largest reservoir of sulfuric and hydrochloric acid. The crater rim is the rallying point for the miners of Kawah Ijen. The volcano is home to the largest sulfur mine in the country.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks to God, I'm fine.
This is my friend. We go back a long way. We're going to climb down into the Kawah Ijen crater with him.
Like his father and grandfather before him, every day for the past 30 years, Madrisin has carried baskets up and down from the sulfur mine. Sulfur mining began in 1911 when Indonesia was a Dutch colony. Not much has changed since then. The men descend into the crater down a steep, craggy path carved into the rock. To reach the mine, which is situated on the shores of the lake, you have to first make your way through a cloud of sulfurous gas.
Usually I just use this piece of cloth to protect my face, but this mask was given to me by a tourist.
Such pitiful protection doesn't prevent sulfur dioxide from attacking the nasal mucous membranes and burning the skin and eyes. Following in Madrisin's footsteps, we eventually get to the lake. The sulfur mine is in front of us, spewing out plumes of poisonous gas. The landscape is apocalyptic.
When I get here, I look at the lake. If it's quiet like today, there's no danger. But if the water turns white, it means it will give off very toxic gases.
In 1976, a huge bubble of sulfurous gas exploded on the surface of the lake, killing 11 miners. The beauty of this landscape shouldn't make us forget the suffering of the men who work here. Armed with a simple crowbar, Madrisin attacks the steaming yellow rock to extract blocks of sulfur. These gigantic plumes are sulfur-laden steam heated by magma in the depths of the volcano.
To extract the sulfur, pipes have been installed in the main crater. The volcanic gas is then channeled down the pipes, where it condenses and becomes liquid sulfur, which, when it cools, turns into ore. Look, it's very, very hot.
For Madrisin, this ore is an inexhaustible treasure that enables him to feed and provide for his 5 children.
I usually carry between 65, 75 kilos. I do 3 trips a day, so that's 200 kilos. I started working when I was 20 and haven't stopped. This job is too hard. I don't want my children doing the same. They must work hard at school.
Carrying 70 kilos on his shoulders, Madrisin climbs back up to the top of the crater. Each step is a real ordeal for Ladrasi, who is one of the oldest miners of Kawah Ijen. Sadly, miners here have a very short life expectancy. Halfway up, exhausted, Madrisin is forced to take a short break.
It's not like it was. I'm tired. I don't have as much strength as before. But as long as I'm healthy, I'll carry on until I can no longer lift my baskets. Then I'll have to stop.
To forget the hell of Kawah Ijen and find some relief, Madrasan and his companions sing a traditional song. Their song is about the lives of these men who live in poverty, far from their families, and whose destiny is to work hard to earn a living. Today, Madrasan climbed the steep slope of the crater 3 times. He can now finally breathe a little, even though he still has to walk a few miles to deliver his precious cargo and get paid. Despite his suffering, tomorrow will be the same, and Madrasan will be back in the hell that is Kawah Ijen. Since starting out on this maritime adventure in the Sunda Islands, we have witnessed firsthand the strength of the ties that unite the Indonesians to their volcanoes. In spite of many deadly eruptions that have marked their history, the inhabitants of the archipelago consider the volcanoes to be their respected friends. Their powerful silhouettes are like beacons, landmarks that reassure. The object of many beliefs and superstitions, incarnations of good and evil, volcanoes nourish the soul of native Indonesian people. Earthquakes and eruptions are accepted as the expression of a world in search of balance, where one treads a fine line, like a tightrope walker.